2007, we were prompted to do a study or an analysis of MRIs of patients. So I was consulting with a research specialist out of a major university on the West Coast. And he's been doing research for 30 years, and I talked to him about what my goals were. I said, we want to look at the disc. So a lot of what we did was designed around looking at the disc and looking for fundamental changes. So in 2007, it was November, I was consulting with this specialist, research specialist, and he said, ideally what you need is 8 people with really bad backs. And they have to have bad backs that have not gotten better with other treatments. Meaning they've had bad backs for a long time and they've tried other treatments and not gotten better. And we need 8 of them to come in, and what we're going to do is we're going to do an MRI and then a treatment and then an MRI, and we're going to do it all in the same day, and we're going to analyze the MRI. So it was really an analysis of the MRIs. So we got 8 people, and the researcher said you really want really bad backs, because it's not important that you can change a healthy back, because nobody cares because their back is already healthy. It's really about the bad back. So we had to find 8 people, and they had to have had other treatments. So we had people that had gone through other therapies. They had gone through chiropractic, physical therapy, acupuncture, surgery, and had taken the medicine. And we had a woman come in, and she had a fusion. So she was post-fusion. Now, before the fusion, she had pain in her leg, and she had pain in her back. And she went to the doctor and to the surgeon, and he said, well, you know what, you've got sciatica. And typically the sciatica, what we want to do is we want to open up the space where the nerve comes out of the spine, and then we want to fuse it. So she had a fusion to her spine, and what they did is they fused 3 of the vertebrae together, and when they locked it in place, what it did is it really loaded stress on her discs. And before the surgery, she was able to sleep through the night. After the surgery, she was not able to sleep through the night. So when she came to us, she was 3 months post-fusion surgery, and she had not slept since the surgery. Before the surgery, she was able to sleep. After the surgery, she was not able to sleep. My point is, the people that came in for our study had really bad backs. So we had them come in, we did an MRI, we did a treatment, and then we did another MRI. And when we did that, what we did is we compared the 2 MRIs. And when we compared the 2 MRIs, ideally what we were looking at was the nucleus. So we were looking to see if we could get an increase of oxygen, nutrients, and most importantly fluid into the nucleus, because the nucleus gives stability to the disc. So the general thought was if we can increase the oxygen and nutrients into the disc, that we could get healthier discs. So when I went to the MRI center, and when you do an MRI like this, you really want what's called a high field MRI. It's a really big, powerful magnet. The really tight MRI tubes that you go in, those are the tubes, those are the kind of MRIs I wanted. So I did my research, and I found one here locally that was a high field MRI, but a really powerful magnet. And I went to the medical doctor that was reading the MRIs, and I said, I want to do a study, and I want to look at the nucleus, and I want to see if our process can rehydrate the nucleus. And he looked at me, and he said, you know what, don't waste my time, don't waste your time, and don't waste the patient's time, because it can't be done. I said, well, I've sort of done my research on this, and I've been working with a consultant who's helping me with this. I said, and we've got the people lined up, we really want to do it, and I want to do it here. He says, I'll do it. He said, I'm not expecting much, but I will do it. I said, fine. I said, that's the best I can ask for. So patients came in, all 8 patients, and we did our treatment, we did the MRIs, and what we did is we compared them. And as we compared them, we found that we could get, when we had the people go through the therapy, that one day, we could get an increase, a minimum increase of 10%. of hydration inside the nucleus. And in some cases, we had 28%. I figured we did it, right? The patients were between 39 and 83. Okay, so these weren't young people either. They weren't old people, but they weren't young. So I said, we did it. I said, if we can get 10% after one treatment, we did it. So I called the gentleman that I was consulting with. I said, you know what? We did it. We did it. He said, no, you didn't do it. He said, you did it one time. He says, and when you do it one time, it doesn't mean anything's really happening. He says, if you do it 30 times, do you get the same 10% or do you get more? He says, if you get more, that means clinically something's happening over a longer period of time with this rehydration process. So I thought, all right, why don't we take these people? They're going to be in therapy because they were our patients. I said, why don't we just do an MRI at the end? He said, perfect. So we had these people go through the program, and my vision was if we got 10% after one treatment, we can get 100% after 30 treatments. So we had the patients go through the therapy, and we sent them back for their third MRI. So they had 2 the first day, and now 3 months later they're having a third. And I was looking for 100%. And my research consultant knew I was looking for 100%. And the medical doctor that was reading the MRIs knew I was looking for 100%. They all thought I was crazy. So I called the doctor. I said, doctor, what do we get? He's read the third MRI. He says, you're not going to like it. He says, you didn't get 100%. He says, but you got 80%. So I felt pretty good about that. He says, that, in my mind, is clinically significant. This is the medical doctor. He said, but you know what? I never thought much of this rehydration thing that you're talking about. He says, I didn't think it really mattered. I didn't really even care. He said, but what I'm finding is more important than the rehydration. He said, these people that you sent back to me to read their third MRI, he said they're getting this rehydration process. But more importantly, what's happening is the bulging discs are going away. And the herniated discs are going away. And he said, in my mind, this is more important. He said, for 30 years I've been reading MRIs. I've never seen one go away. Certainly of this size. So I felt pretty good about that. Our original goal was 100%. We didn't get it. But what we found by doing this study, where we were looking for rehydration of the nucleus, we found that we could get rid of herniated discs. We did not know that the herniated disc would go away before 2007. We knew that patients felt better, but we didn't know that we could get rid of their herniated disc. Now, this patient was one of the original patients that went through the process. This was her very first MRI, and this is her last MRI. Okay? The herniated disc was completely gone after our treatment. We did not know that was going to happen. So the rehydration process gives healing to the disc, but also through the healing of the disc has the ability to eliminate the herniated disc and eliminate the bulging disc and eliminate stenosis and eliminate sciatica. That's what we found by doing the MRI analysis. Before we did it, we didn't know. Now we know. And that's the story.